Hey guys, so we're gonna do a little outboard jet pump maintenance. Last year when I was running my sled on the river, I hit something and I damaged my pump foot. In fact, it broke to the point that a chunk of it would have come off. So I ordered a new pump foot, and I've always had extra liners, but I went to replace that. I haven't run the sled in a while because I've been running the other boats. And so now it's time to get this thing up and running. And I noticed that my impeller was just worn out, and that happens. You need to be able to replace your liners, maybe do a little maintenance on the impeller, but at some point you may need to change your impeller out and put a new liner and put it all back together. So today we're going to talk about the process for doing that. So when I walk you through this, even though I'm doing a complete change out, keep in mind if you're running your sled and maybe your hole shot isn't as good as it once was, it's most likely due to the fact that your liner is getting eaten up and you don't have a tight enough tolerance there anymore. It's nice and open. I'm going to show you how to inspect that as we put this one together. This is a simple process. It can save you a lot of money and time. If you know how to do this, then you can save money in driving to see your mechanic, and you'll definitely save that hourly wage in getting the mechanic to fix this for you. Okay, this is 100% easy to do. One thing I will point out is I'm not going to get into the different sizes of wrenches and things that you need because it's really simple, and it really depends on which outboard or which jet pump you have. I'm running a Yamaha VMAX, and so the pump I have could very well be different than the pump you might have, say, on a Mercury or a Suzuki or a Honda or any other type of outboard engine. So let's jump into this and get this impeller changed out, get a new liner installed, and make sure we have the gapping done properly. Okay guys, as you can see, I already have my outboard tilted up. This is a tiller outboard, but if you have an outboard with a jet pump, that's the jet pump. I already have the foot removed and ready to replace. Okay guys, so as I mentioned, I've already removed the foot, the liner, the impeller, everything's removed. Everything looks good in here. There's no rocks or anything up inside of my jet pump. And so we're going to get our new impeller put in here and get the liner and test fit everything. So one thing I should point out, and I've already done this, I use the same lubricant I use to grease the jet pump after each use. I've already put a light film of grease on the shaft, and I've also used a wire brush, and I've cleaned these studs and put a light film of grease on the studs. Not all jet pump feet have studs like this. Some of them are tapped out and you literally screw a bolt in. So the older style, I think, has that type of setup. If you have that type of setup, I'd clean the nuts and maybe grease them or put some dielectric grease. I like to just use grease. That's what the mechanics use, and that just prevents oxidation and corrosion, because stainless steel is not friendly with other types of metal, and this is kind of like a pot metal, you know, a mix of different metals to form this thing. Okay, so above the impeller, and I'll just show you the impeller real quick, especially if you're new to this. So this is the impeller. This is the top side. This is the bottom side. If you're new to this, just so you understand the makeup here, there's a plastic liner. Okay. If you buy a new impeller, this needs to come with it, because you have to have it to make that tight tolerance. Now, one thing I did is I put a little bit of grease on there so it's sticky inside the impeller. And then there's also a woodruff key that goes in here, and I'll show you how to assemble it. Now, above the impeller are some washers, and there are some washers below the impeller. What happens is as the impeller wears away on the liner and it wears away at the impeller, you move washers from one side to the other to keep that nice tight tolerance between the impeller and the liner. So let's work on that. I'm going to add, and here in the beginning, I'm just guessing at this. Sometimes you guess right, sometimes you guess wrong. I'm going to throw a couple washers on the shaft. Then I'm going to grab our impeller, and I want the notch in the impeller. There's a notch up here. I want that notch to be oriented so it lines up with the flat side of the shaft. That prevents everything from turning. I'm just going to eyeball it, keep my finger over the sleeve, and I'm pretty close. The sleeve's off just a little bit. It's easy to line up. And the sleeve's protruding a little bit. I'll show you how to correct that in just a second. So now, I'm going to grab my woodruff key. Make sure this is all lined up again. So take the woodruff key, and we're going to slide under the sleeve, but more importantly, we're going to make sure that it lines up with the notch on the impeller. Okay, you can see it's lined up and it's all up in there. So now I'm going to take the washers, the remaining washers, I'm going to put those on the bottom, and then every one of these pumps has a very special washer, and it's got a flat side. That flat side is going to orient with the flat side on the shaft. Okay? Now I'm going to take my nut, and I'm going to start that up on the shaft, and I want to push up, and I just want to hand tighten it. We are not tightening this with any type of wrench or socket yet. Okay, so that's hand tight. Okay, now we want to take our sleeve and we want to get our sleeve installed. Okay, the sleeve has an angle to it. That larger opening is what goes up. So we line this up. They can be a little snug getting on, but just work that up there. And I can see I'm against the pump with the sleeve. It's tight up there. And what I want to do is I want to get a business card. Okay, now let me talk about business cards for a second. My business cards are a fairly heavy stock. Some business cards can be very thin. What you're looking for, I like using my thicker business card, is what you're looking for is you're looking to test the gap between the impeller and the sleeve. And you should be able to slide your business card in between the liner and the impeller. Okay, so this fits. I happen to luck out and I put the right amount of washers on the top versus on the bottom. Had I put, say, 3 or 4 washers on the top side of the impeller, this impeller would have sat lower and I would not have been able to get my business card in there at all. Okay, so again, I just lucked out. So if you put yours together and your business card is tight, then that means you have too many washers on the top side and you need to bring them down to the bottom side. Okay, so we know this is going to work. So I'm going to remove my business card, set it aside, and I'm going to slide the liner off. What I want to do is I want to snug this nut up a little bit. What I'm trying to do is, you'll notice there's these ears on that last washer I put on. Those need to be bent down to a flat side of the nut. So I just want to tighten this up just a little bit. Not much. There it is. That is snug. That, you're not torquing down on this, okay? This is, I could probably even, if I wanted to, with a turn, I just turned it some more, right? So you're just trying to get this flat side lined up. Okay, all right. So we're lined up, doesn't have to be that tight. And then what we're doing is we are bending that tab down, okay? Flat tip screwdriver, get it started, and then tap that down. Do the same thing for the bottom side. So these are now down on the side. And I'll move the camera so you can see it. As you can see, these are the ears. There's one on this side and there's one on the bottom side, but now they're flat against the nut, so the nut will not rotate and come off. Okay, so we know our liner's going to fit. So what we're going to do is a couple things at once here. So my hands are going to be kind of busy. You know, you could use an extra set of hands, but really a one person can do this. So one trick that I was told about, and it works great, is I'm going to take a business card and I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm going to take those two halves and cut that in half. So now I have 4 pieces of my business card. When we put the liner on, all right, as you can see, the impeller's tight. You've got that sleeve in there. The tolerance here is tight. The impeller's not going to move. But if we look here, we have a little bit of movement side to side on our sleeves. So one little trick you can do, and all you're doing this for is to make sure that you're lining the impeller, you're orienting it to the sleeve, as we're putting that up in there to hold it in place. Now the business card's made out of paper, so when it discharges, it's just going to dissolve, so you're not going to hurt anything. But we've got that up in there. Now we want to take our pump foot, brand new pump foot, okay, and we want to get that installed over the liner. The pump foot with the liner in place is what holds that liner down. So those business cards are providing the correct spacing between the liner and the impeller, and the pump foot is going to snug it all down and hold it into place. So let's get our nuts on. These are nylock. I would always recommend nylock nuts. I like to finger tight the top one, and then we can get the rest of them put in. Okay, so we have the top one finger tight. We're not tightening it down yet, and we're going to install the rest of the nuts. Okay, now if you're not getting that hole shot I talked about, and you need to change up the spacing, there's a couple things to think about. One, you're probably going to have to use a file and clean up your impeller a little bit. It might have burrs or nicks. I'm going to clean that up. And if your liner is shot, and I'll show you a used liner, you're going to want to get a new liner. Liners are pretty inexpensive, but you'll reinstall everything just the way I'm putting it together now, and just make sure that that gap has that business card gap. And I think your hole shot performance is going to be much improved. Okay, I've got all these hand tight. I like to tighten these up kind of like I do if I'm doing a wheel on a vehicle. I'll get the top one first, then I'm going to go to the bottom. It's likely you're just going to have to use a hand wrench because sockets just are not going to fit in here. So I've done the top and I've done complete opposite. I've gotten that nut down. Don't reef on these too much, just snug them down, okay? I'm going to go to the opposite nut. Snug down. Okay, now I'll come over here. Taking these apart and adjusting the impeller, maybe changing out the liner. It's not a long process, you know, if there's no serious damage. I mean, you can see it's a very quick job. This pump foot here comes with a zinc on it, which I like. You probably can see I've had some of my powder coating has popped off a little bit. I do run this boat in the salt water as well as the fresh water, but that pump foot is on there. I know my tolerance is going to be good. When I run this pump, it won't be a problem. In fact, we could probably reach up under through the grates and we could pull those business cards out with a dental tool. So I grabbed the dental tool, and if I just reach up inside of the grate, I can go ahead and pull out those pieces of business card. Right. So I've gotten all the business cards pulled out. So, you know, either way, whether you pull them out with a dental tool or they flush out through the pump, you're not going to hurt anything because it is paper. Okay, guys, as you can see, doing some outboard jet pump impeller maintenance is really pretty easy. Doesn't take that long. You know, it's understanding some of the little intricacies that's really going to help you out, such as, you know, using a little bit of grease, using the business card, understanding the gap and tolerances. You know, I was talking about impellers, and this is one that I took out, and quite honestly, this impeller is not in that bad of shape, but I went ahead and changed it out. But you can see there are some grooves in here, and if I run this dental pick over these grooves, you can see that it's kind of bouncing along those grooves. You know, if I run it on the smooth side, it's just very smooth, doesn't make any noise at all. So could I have gotten by with this liner? Absolutely. But I went ahead and gave it a new liner. So hopefully this information is going to help you be successful with your outboard jet pump maintenance. Remember to grease your jet pump after each use. It pushes that water out of your jet pump, and that's really important. Make sure that if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, and make sure you hit that subscribe button so anytime we have new content coming out, you'll be notified. Thanks for watching.